We all go a little mad sometimes.
You want burgers, hot dogs, some chicken, and ribs. Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
Okay, I heard the best joke.
All right,
today
what's that?
From our 7-year-old, okay? This is a yes or no question.
Okay, yes or no question.
That's it.
Okay.
Do chickens have lips?
No.
Of course they don't. They have fucking beaks. That's what he said to me, and I was like, okay.
All right, I'll give it to him. That's pretty good. That is pretty good.
When it comes from nowhere, it was a pretty good joke.
That is good. Just comes out of nowhere. We allow our kids to curse here
At home.
We allow it.
It adds character.
It does. It builds character, and we just don't care. You know, like life's too short not to curse every now and then.
As long as they're not cussing out us.
Exactly. Or out in public. You know, the home is a safe place. You can curse as much as you want here. Don't curse in public because dad doesn't want to punch somebody for being a little questioning about my parenthood, because then I'll punch you in the face. I've already threatened the governor. Anyway.
Oh, God.
Hey, I said, if anybody comes and checks the genitals of my children, I will go to jail. But anyway, what a weird way to start today's episode.
Sorry.
Welcome to Night of the Horrorphile, a horror movie and genre film podcast where we take a horror movie and genre film and show it to my beautiful wife, Brittany, who then gives us her input and lets us know if she likes these things or if she hates them. And you are back after a little bit of a hiatus there. You were gone off of the last week's episode. We had Honey and Brian Parkinson and you were gone off that. And you were also gone off our 2 side shows on the Patreon.
Yeah.
So people had to sit with me and listen to me talk about Eraserhead.
Good.
you get the true feeling of what it's like to be Brittany over on Patreon.
I'm sorry. I've been a busy bee.
It's okay. It's okay because you started a new job.
I did.
You almost snapped your ankle in half.
I did. I've been recovering.
It's been good, though. You've had a good little vacation there.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
You had a nice vacation. We even recorded a short shoot in the shit, you know?
Yeah.
Just to give you some bonus rest time. So I think so. Are you ready to be back?
No.
You know? No. You're not ready.
I'm ready to start a new job.
You're ready to watch it.
This.
You're like, can we do another podcast?
No. Let's
just quit the podcast. Do your movies. Stop doing podcasts. Every time I'm like,
fine.
You know, eventually if I do get into movies too much, I will have to pause the podcast more often. You're like, oh no. Oh Lord.
How dare you?
That'll be awful. No. She does enjoy you guys. She enjoys talking to you guys weekly basis.
I do. Sometimes I do need a vacation because my life is hectic.
Yes, you are indeed the hectic one.
I had 2 jobs at one point.
By societal standards, I'm the housewife and Brittany is the working man.
But I'm also the soccer mom.
You're also a soccer mom. We have 4 kids, you know, shit happens.
Yeah. And then court and all this.
Court.
Oh my God.
A lot has been going on, but it seems like things are getting better slowly.
Oh, God.
While everything else is crumbling around us. But getting better. Get better every day. But anyway, what a wonderful episode to have you back on, because today's episode has a huge special place here at Night of the Horrorphile.
Oh, yeah.
Not only is it my favorite Hitchcock film, but it's also what influenced our podcast. It's what influenced me to put you on a microphone.
Yep.
Do you regret watching that movie with me?
No.
Because what did we watch this week?
Psycho.
Yes, and it was while we were watching 1960s Psycho that I got the idea to show Britt all the movies she had never seen, especially the horror genre. Because up until that time, which was like, God, what was that, 3 to 4 years ago?
Yeah.
At this point, you had never seen Psycho.
No.
What was crazy about that, though? Because a lot of people haven't seen Psycho. A lot of people haven't seen, like, Rosemary's Baby or something. But you know enough about Rosemary's Baby to, honestly, grant not ever seeing it. You know, some people.
Really?
But, see, that's what's magical about Brittany. She literally knew zero anything about Psycho. What was the rudimentary knowledge you went into that movie with when we watched it?
That it was a black and white movie. And it was made by the same guy that did The Birds.
I'm going to let that sink in for you guys. I'm going to let that sink in of how absolutely lucky I am to be able to sit down with a movie as old as time. Talked about. Classes are taught on this movie. College exams have been had over this movie. The cat is out of the bag with Psycho from 1960. There are no twists to be had anymore. But for Brittany, she sat down and she watched this with a fresh pair of fucking eyes, and I got to watch her watch it. It was magical. It was like Christmas morning for me. I look over, and as soon as that twist happens where Marion Crane dies, you were like, what the fuck? Psycho got a what the fuck. I think that was the first time in maybe 40 years that it had a what the fuck. You know? Maybe 40 years, maybe more than that. What is it, 2020? Oh, God, probably 100 years since it got a what the fuck.
Yeah, I knew it was in black and white, and I knew that Hitchcock did it, and the only thing I knew about him was he did the Birds movie. And the only reason I knew about the Birds movie is because my grandma, growing up, she hated birds.
Well, the Birds is even more impossible to escape from than Psycho. You know?
But the only thing I know about it is there's birds. I don't know if they're killer birds.
See, look at that. Look at how awesome.
All I know is that there's birds in it. I couldn't tell you anything else.
I think that's the unspoken excitement about the show that a lot of people tend to forget. A lot of our fans tend to forget is that being that it is you who has not seen anything.
Right.
Is I get to watch someone freshly watch these movies. Unruined opinions, you know? Because nowadays with Twitter and all sorts of stuff, a movie like Psycho could come out and you'd know the middle, ending, the beginning, everything before you even saw the movie.
Yeah.
With you avoided all that. Somehow you went through time avoiding the plot of Psycho.
And also, like, even though I watched this 4 years ago, I remember the plot twist, obviously. That's the big part.
Right.
Did I remember anything else? No.
Wow. See, that's great.
Because for some reason, I thought she goes to Sam's house, and for some reason, I thought Sam was Norman. I was like, oh, it's like I'm watching this all over again.
Yeah. And I totally fucking love that. Because, you know, I've said it millions of times on the show. There are movies I wish I could go watch for a first time, not knowing what the hell it is.
Well, have my brain then.
Yeah, and Psycho is one of those features that I wish I could experience. I was so jealous by the time we got to the end of Psycho. Because you were like an even bigger what the fuck when the final twist is revealed. You were like, no way. I was like, yeah. Great stuff. Well, based on the 1959 novel by the same name written by Robert Bloch, Psycho is probably one of the biggest influences on modern horror, especially the slasher subgenre. A lot of people take a lot of influence from, Psycho. You could argue that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre takes a lot from Psycho, a little bit. And now Robert Bloch based his novel loosely on Ed Gein, who, as many true crime fans know, was a grave robber and murderer who lived a solitary life with his mother at the farmhouse until she passed, and then he started wearing lady skin. As you do.
Yeah.
But it was that kind of influenced Robert Bloch's novel, because you had an unassuming man, because Ed was known around town in Plainsville as just, old weird Eddie, like, unassuming, you shit like that. And I believe Norman Bates is kind of on the same lines, only he's less, creepy. Well, what's really funny about Norman, when you watch this now, because the end of the movie,
right?
He is creepy throughout, but watching it, like, you got to kind of like take yourself out of that, take the knowledge out of your brain and watch it at first. And he's not that creepy at first. He's just a shy dude.
I didn't think he was creepy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he doesn't seem creepy at first. So that's what he was aping there. And it was Peggy Robertson, Alfred Hitchcock's longtime assistant, who read a review on Robert Bloch's novel, and she brought the book to Hitchcock, who then got the rights to the novel for $9,500.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, bought the rights to this thing. Now, Hitchcock also had Peggy Robertson buy all the copies of the novel she could, from Robert Bloch to preserve the twist.
Oh.
Hitchcock was fucking genius at keeping this twist under wraps.
He did it from me for a long time.
From beyond the grave, he kept it a secret. I think when you yelled, "What the fuck?" I think Hitchcock rose momentarily. It was like, excellent. And then just went back to sleep, But now the bad news was that Paramount Studios at the time had already shot this down as a prospective movie. They reasoned that it was too revolting and too shocking to possibly put on film. It's funny talking about this now. They refused to give Hitchcock his usual budget. Refused to let him make this movie. Nobody wanted him to make this movie. So in turn, Hitchcock offered to do Psycho on the cheap, using black and white and having his crew come over that he had already assembled for Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which was a television show, kind of an anthology series that he did. It's a wonderful series if you guys can get a hold of it. I believe it's on Paramount. But see, Paramount still rejected this, saying that their sound stages were all booked up. The problem was, though, what was working against them at the time, though, was Paramount really didn't have the legs to hold this out for long. Around this time, the industry was in a slump. See, around the late 50s and the beginning of the 60s, filmmakers and studios were struggling to come up with hits to combat the rise of television, which was driving people from the theaters and into the homes.
Oh,
yeah. It's kind of what we're kind of reliving it with streaming.
Mm-hmm.
There's the things where it's like, oh, the theater is going to die. Let me break it to you. The theater's never going to die.
No.
There's always going to be movie theaters. Some chain theaters might shut down and batter up the hatches, but we'll still have movie theaters in some form. They had to find some way to combat that. One of the ways was they started making features that were huge, cost millions of dollars. Like Cleopatra cost them like $37 million.
Oh, wow.
To make back then, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the problem with that was you could only make a few of those each year instead of packing the screens with these little smaller budget movies. So with Hitchcock's next offer, they absolutely just didn't have the legs to refuse it, because he offered to personally finance the project and film it at Universal International and Review Studios using his crew at Shamley Productions if Paramount agreed to distribute. Fantastic deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all they have to do is distribute this film. Plus, he waived his usual $250,000 director's fee and took instead 60% stake in the film negative. This was, of course, accepted. But of course, there were still naysayers, I swear, no one wanted Hitchcock to fucking do this movie, including producer Herbert Coleman and at Shamley Productions and the executive Joan Harrison. But with all of them properly ignored, filming began, on Psycho.
So they just were scared that it was going to bomb?
That's the thing, because the studios could not afford not to have a hit.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, they were really scared about that because, again, with television, you had ways to see older movies now.
Right.
A lot of stations started showing older movies. It's like, well, why go to the theater when I can have the theater at home? Technically, I have an experience at home and I can do. And so that was one of the reasons why they did shoot up production costs on movies, was to do what television studios could not with their budgets.
Right.
It's one of the reasons. It's another one of the reasons that theaters are having a hard time now, because television studios and streaming studios now have those $1 million budgets.
Oh,
yeah, like a movie. You could watch one of these television shows that come on streaming, and it's like watching a movie. Almost no difference. Sometimes better.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So that's the little crevice we're in with the theater. If something will happen, it'll bring it back.
And COVID didn't help that.
No, that absolutely did not help it.
Because now everybody realizes, oh, we can do these things from home. We can do all of this. People will pay $20 to see this movie from home.
Yeah.
Instead of at the theater.
And what I said about like the theaters never going away is now big studios are realizing, oh, yes, we can premiere a movie at home.
Yes.
and also have it in the theaters because people still want to get out and go to the theater.
Right.
They will never die, you guys. I promise you. Maybe in 60 years when I'm old and gray and about to croak, you can come and punch me in the face and tell me I was a liar. But I promise you the theaters are never going to go away.
No, here's the thing. Is there's people that go to the theaters religiously. I used to work at a movie theater.
It's an experience.
We'd see the same people all the time. They would come whatever time that they like to come. And they would see whatever. They didn't even know what movies were playing. They'd be like, what movie is playing at this time? And they would go watch it.
Yeah, well, we're communal. We're a communal species. You know, we need to get out and socialize. Whether, you know, even me as an antisocial kind of person, I love to get out and socialize. You have to. You have to have it as a human being. And so, like, when the theaters were shutting down, guess what? The drive-ins started coming back. You know, the drive-ins started being more popular.
Oh, yeah.
And so now the theaters are open. Now the drive-ins are open, too. So it's all just kind of come back. So it's going to be okay.
It is going to be okay.
But anyway, without further ado, and believe me, we have a lot to talk about.
Oh, my God.
What can you... there is no minute of this movie that isn't fucking iconic.
I guess so. Yeah, you're right.
Not to you, but I understand. But let's dive into Psycho from 1960.
Friday, December 11th, 2:43 p.m.
You know...
Leigh gets stabbed in the shower. By a cross-dressing man. Wait, can I say that on the internet?
It's okay to cross-dress. I think that's fine.
Okay.
We're accepting of cross-dressing. That's fine. If you
I
want to
just
dress
didn't
in
know
women's
if that was
clothing.
a derogatory.
I don't think you can say. Is it cross-dressing still? I don't know. We'll get corrected on Twitter. You know, whatever.
The drag queens.
Sure, yeah.
They
by a drag
stabbed
queen. You know, I'm going to remake Psycho.
Okay.
No, is that derogatory to have a drag queen stab me in a shower scene? Imagine Divine just brutally murdering my naked ass in a shower. That would be gold.
That would be my favorite thing to ever see ever.
It would be the best movie ever. Just fucking no notes and pencils down. Okay, so like I said earlier, it is weird to say, but this was a controversial film at the time.
So weird.
Yeah, it is really weird because this is pretty tame by today's standards. But Paramount did have a contract with Hitchcock early on that indeed guaranteed a film from him. So it's not like they were like not wanting a film from him. They had a contract with him. They really wanted another one of his star-studded mystery movies like Rope and stuff like that. And, you know, Audrey Hepburn was even signed on to do a movie called No Bail for the Judge, but she had to drop out due to pregnancy. So Hitchcock went another direction, and the thing with Hitchcock was when he would get laser focused on a project, that was the project he was going to do.
Oh, so he had ADHD like you.
Exactly. But that's the project that he was going to do. He wasn't taking no for an answer. He was going to push forward.
Oh, wow.
And so this was his 47th film.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And in his eyes, this was a way to experiment and toy with audiences' expectations. He did that a lot in his films. Plus, it was risque for the time. You know, Psycho may seem tame to us now, but it's violent and it's partial nudity.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It made it very, very sexual for the time, and it was horror, you know, and nothing riles up an audience more than a horror movie. And it had sex in there. And so it in itself is a very provocative movie when you think about the time it came out, 1960.
Right.
You know, we don't really talk about that time very often, but 1960, you weren't really, you know, we just hit the 60s in the free love era. Wasn't until around the corner, you know.
Right,
we were still living in the prim and proper 50s, you know. We didn't show things. The Hays Code was still going on. We talked about the Hays Code before, and so like that was still going on. And the biggest fear was that like audiences were going to take this and it was going to get thrown around by the MPAA and all this stuff, you know, like they assumed like it just wasn't going to be a hit was their main concern because studios' main concern is money.
Well, yeah.
So, but he fucking laser focused in on this to push it forward and probably helped define a subgenre. You know, because slasher movies had existed before this, you know, in some kind of form. But it was Psycho that really kind of put some of the twists and stuff that we have today. into mainstream slashers.
Right.
Like the twists of finding out who the killer was at the very end and stuff like that. A lot of movies that had a killer, you kind of knew who it was, and you just followed them. They were like the main character of the movie. And so you think about this movie, you think about a 1960 audience sitting down to watch Psycho. This was freaky in all sorts of different manners.
I bet in this first scene, people walked out.
Probably.
Because she was like,
she's in her underwear, which
basically.
Really cool thing about the underwear thing and her hand purse. If you watch the movie real closely, like they change colors. At the beginning, her bra and her purse are both white.
Right.
Then as you go through the movie after she's stolen the money, they change to black.
It's getting darker, yeah.
Yeah, so she's like an angel at first, and then she's kind of a bit more corrupted by the middle of this movie. We'll talk about Marion Crane because I don't think enough people give her a lot of credit, like this character, a lot of credit for being so complex.
Right.
This isn't just, it's an evil woman. Like I've heard a lot of film study, like one of my professors was talking about how Marion Crane represents the older model of evil woman who gets what she deserves. And I was like, I don't agree with you at all. Normally movies around this time treated stuff like sexuality and violence in a more subtle or symbolic way. But Psycho dives right the fuck into it.
Oh, right.
And so like, again, you're not expecting this. He subverts your expectations.
So Marion and Sam are in a hotel room on lunch after they have fucked. They didn't say it like that.
No, but they telegraph it like a motherfucker. It's we just had sex and we're in an ongoing affair.
But I don't. Okay, I guess I kind of do understand, but I kind of don't understand. I guess because it's 1960, but like. They're having an affair, but neither of them are married. So it's not like they're cheating affair.
Exactly.
But they can't. This was back in a time when you didn't have sex before you were married.
That's the salacious part.
Is my question.
That was the salacious part.
Yeah.
Now to give her less of the evil woman and stuff like that, Hitchcock has her in this situation where technically what she's doing is not wrong.
Right.
And technically, none of it's wrong. I mean, they do talk about licking the stamps on the alimonies, but mostly what she's doing is definitely not wrong, but so you kind of see it because you don't know. He's very vague with this.
Right.
And so you don't know is like, were they having an ongoing affair and that's what led up to his divorce? Who knows?
Right.
It's that gray period that he puts her in at the very beginning that helps with what you're going to have to feel for the character later on.
Right.
So what I like about this opening, though, is when we open on the movie, you get that cool cityscape and stuff, and you go up to the window, right? And by the way, you get to see Hitchcock in one of his famous cameos at the very beginning.
Oh, really?
He's walking by. But you go up to the window. It's a very voyeuristic.
Oh yeah.
Feeling.
Yeah.
And plus, which by the way, Hitchcock was huge on voyeurism. Not even just in Rear Window,
There's a whole movie about it.
Oh yeah, there's a whole movie, Rear Window, with fucking Jimmy Stewart, where he's got a broken leg or something, and he's laid up in his apartment, and he's looking out the window being a voyeur, and then
shit.
he fucking sees a murder.
Oh shit!
Yeah. It's a really good movie. I explained it like shit because I'm hoping to show it to you, but anyway,
right.
So he touches on that several times in voyeurism in this movie a little bit,
Yeah.
But also like just he's forcing you right here to reflect on things. Like Marion, even her reflection is touched on a lot. You see mirrors throughout this movie.
Yeah.
The use of mirrors, and it helps you. It makes you feel as if all this was kind of chosen at random. Like you yourself could be applied to these events that are about to unfold in this movie.
Right.
I'm going to be way too film school today, and I apologize.
I'm like,
But I think that's also what causes this movie to be scary. It doesn't scare me now because I've watched it like a million times, but it is kind of scary because of the way it feels so grounded and down to earth. There's no supernatural. There's no ghosts.
Thank God. That would have just made this too cheesy. I couldn't do it. I just I don't know where it would fit anyway, but still. Still. So Marion says that this is the last time they can meet because she is tired of them being a secret and she wants to be married, but they can't because Sam has to work to pay off all this debt that he has. And he wants to provide a better life for her. I understand where he's coming from. He's saying, I have to pay alimony. I have to pay off my dad's debt from when he died, or his parents or whatever, when they died, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he already doesn't live a very luxurious lifestyle.
Yeah, he wants
not
to provide,
enough to provide for a wife and then maybe kids.
It's an old 50s like kind of stereotypical sensibilities. You know, like the man's the breadwinner. If I'm not winning all the bread, then there's no point of us getting married.
Right.
Is Sam's deal.
And she's like, she doesn't care though.
No.
She was like, I'll live in a shack with you, basically, is what she's saying. She's like, I don't care. I love you. And he's like, no.
Yeah, and that's where it lays the groundwork that she's a victim of her situation. Really. You know, of the time and the situation.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I don't really like
of course,
that, but...
of course, we get the great Janet Leigh as Marion Crane, mother of Jamie Lee Curtis. Fucking Janet Leigh is awesome. And this is one of the roles she's probably best known for, you know, even though like a lot of people were, you know, with Anthony Perkins, of course, too, everybody was like, you know, they got typecast after this. So like everybody was kind of like the question arose, but like Janet Leigh was totally okay with it. Like she was like, I'd rather be typecast than people not remember me.
Well, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
and Anthony Perkins, to some extent, he was the same way, but also at the same time, he kind of felt this kind of like typecasted and kind of ruined a career that he could have had, but also his closeted homosexuality kind of ruined that too. Yeah. Paramount Studios, one of the executives there hated him because he was homosexual, you know, unlike Warner Brothers at the time. That you know, Tab Hunter, who was dating, well, they had to do it in secret. Tab Hunter was dating Anthony Perkins at the time. Tab would say that like Warner Brothers never questioned his sexuality. They never questioned him. It was like a don't ask, don't tell situation. He was like, that's exactly how I wanted it. Right. Because not a lot is said about these actors back in the day, but being homosexual was almost like a death curse to your career.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you were flushed. I mean, as soon as you came out, it was over. You know, Rock Hudson went through that. Rock Hudson, the biggest selling movie star for a while, and then he came out as gay, and that's last.
And wouldn't it have been, I don't know how violent it was back then in those times, because I never studied any of that, but like.
I mean, very violent, because the police aren't going to do anything if you turn up dead.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Like, they could have been attacked and killed, right? Like.
Yeah, I mean, and worse, your career's completely gone.
Worse. Your career's gone is worse than your death.
It might as well be a death sentence.
That's true.
You know, I mean, what are you going to do if you're a highly qualified actor, as Anthony Perkins is? Mm-hmm. You see it in this movie in spades. But if you're so good at acting and stuff like that, and that's your one skill, what do you have to fall back on? I mean, you might as well be thrown out into the waves of homophobes and shit like that.
Right.
You know, and so it was terrible. And so he had a love-hate relationship with this. A slightly love-hate. He still appreciated what it was. I mean, he came back and directed, I think, 2 of the sequels.
Oh, wow.
And played Norman Bates 3 more times.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Janet and Anthony also took a pay cut for this movie to do it. Because, again, we're trying to keep the budget low. You know, I think all in all, and it still sounds like a lot to you and me, but all in all, I think this movie cost around $800,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
In that time, that's a lot of fucking money.
It's a lot of money, but it's still kind of cheaper for a big budget studio film. That's pretty cheap. Like I said, Cleopatra cost $37 million.
Right.
Now, so technically, Psycho's kind of a low budget movie, and at the time, Anthony Perkins was on his way to being the next James Dean. He was kind of a teen heartthrob.
Oh yeah,
of that time, along with Tab Hunter, and so like. He was a draw, and Janet Leigh was a draw at the time too. She had done Little Women, I believe, before this. So these two were a draw. So imagine going to see this movie where, Janet Leigh, an up and coming actress, and I saw her on this stuff, and then halfway through the movie, she fucking gets it. Yeah, imagine that shock, because that's who you're assuming is the main character. is Janet Leigh.
Right,
I mean, we're
right.
sitting there, we're feeling for her, we're doing all the shit, and then
We're
bam,
with her for so long. Yeah.
At least 40 minutes of this movie has Janet Leigh in it.
Right.
And then bam, she gets it later on. Now, Hitchcock not only took his crew from television, he also worked again with regular collaborators on this film. You have that iconic Bernard Herrmann score. I mean,
oh, yeah.
everybody has this as a ringtone at some point of their life. Everybody knows this. Like,
okay, I did know the tune. That was another thing I knew from the movie. I knew the tune.
There's something about the way this sounds. The sound mix in this movie is outstanding for an older film, and it's just that score gets you. You know, you start feeling paranoia and you start feeling some fear and stuff. It's a lovely score. And it plays throughout this movie. And plus you have George Tomasini. He edits this thing beautifully. And of course, those titles by Saul Bass. The titles are fucking cool as shit.
Oh, yeah.
You get those lines intersecting with each other.
Oh, tell him what I did. Tell him what I did.
What'd you do?
Remember?
Oh, okay. So I go to the kitchen to get something to drink. We're about to watch Psycho. I'm about to sit in. We're going to have a good evening watching Psycho. I go to the kitchen and I hear the Psycho theme start. You know, din, 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 and then just nothing. And then I hear people start talking. I come in like an offended little fancy boy that I am. And I was like, did you just skip past the opening titles to Psycho?
Yes.
The Saul Bass titles.
Yes,
I did. You skipped right by them.
Yeah.
But I love the title design on this. It's
but
really
you
cool.
love reading all. I don't. Just
the title in the movie. The credits in this movie are part of the movie.
No,
I don't understand you bookend people. Like, I can cut the beginning off and the end off, and I have the movie in. But no, it's like taking the bread off of a sandwich.
What's so wrong with that?
Moving on. I'm probably not going to hit any ground that has not been covered by better film study people than me. So I apologize for that, because there's no corner of this movie that isn't well known by now. But Alfred Hitchcock was probably a sexual deviant, you know, I mean, and probably an asshole to his female actors, including Tippi Hedren from The Birds. He actually blocked her from other roles over her refusing his sexual advances. He had a weird obsession with Tippi Hedren. But luckily, he's dead now, so we can just appreciate the art, not the person. You know, I'm just stopping tweets before they happen. I get it. I can still respect the man's work without fucking thinking he was God or something. Like,
that's true.
It's
true.
totally possible. If I had to sit here and hate on every single person in Hollywood who's a terrible person, we would be here a long time, and we'd have to create a separate podcast for that.
Then we could never watch any movies.
You could never watch any movies, especially any movies from this time period where actresses were routinely drugged up to get them on stage. So I'm just stopping the tweets now. I just thought I'd say something. But he was very much infatuated with a few of his stars. Janet Leigh said he never did anything towards her. But apparently Vera Miles, who plays Marion's sister, later refused to work with him again. She was one of them that came out later and said something. Do you know Tippi Hedren is still alive, by the way?
Sure.
She's like 90-something years old. Like, I thought Betty White lived forever, right?
Uh-huh.
I did not know a lot of people are still alive.
Oh, my God.
From the old days.
I forgot that Betty White died.
I know. That's why the world's just, we're ready for it to end. I mean, we're good to go.
Why did you have to do that to me?
I'm sorry.
I don't want to speak of this. Right before her birthday, too. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, back to the movie.
So Marion goes back to work, and this wealthy man is going to buy some property for his daughter who's about to get married. And he's flaunting his $40,000 in cash around. I looked this up. $40,000 in cash in 1960 is equivalent of $400,000 today.
I never looked it up, you know, watching this movie. And still to this day, I was kind of like, well, $40,000, is it enough to like commit for like a felony for her, and then you're like, it would be 400,000. I was like, I'd steal that in a heartbeat.
Right.
In a fucking
Just
heartbeat.
in fucking cash.
Oh my God. Because this dude, this fucking Texas oil man, comes slinging his big dick around the office.
And I know she's upset too, because he's like, his daughter's 18, she's getting married, and she wants to do this.
Right. And that's what's wonderful about this character is you do get to see Marion coming to terms with what she's done throughout the next few scenes.
Yes.
She should be, by cinema and storytelling standards, get her comeuppance, of course, because she's done wrong.
Right.
But she kind of remains in somewhat of a gray area there at first. And that's where Hitchcock starts to fuck with you. He is showing this woman who is indeed committing a crime, but in a way, like I said, she's a victim of her situation. She's a victim of the time, She feels like maybe this is her way out. She's battling with her passion and morality.
Right.
So you're sympathetic to her.
Right.
You feel sympathy for her. That's why he chooses to show the character of Cassidy, who's this big, like I said, he's just slinging his dick around, being rude to all the women and slinging his money around like nothing, like it's fucking water, treats it like they're all fucking, treats his money like fucking nothing.
Right.
like, because everybody in this office is like, did you just bring that in like a giant wad of cash?
Yes. So her boss ends up asking her to take this money for deposit. But instead, she goes home and she's staring at it. She's like, I don't know what to do. She's got the devil angel thing going on. Yeah. And she ends up packing her bags and she heads to Sam.
Which you got to love the moments he takes to let you feel her.
Right.
Hitchcock stops for a minute and lets you feel what she's saying. And a worse director would have taken a pause in the movie and had her talk about it,
Right. Call somebody.
Should I do it? Should I not? And it would be too cheesy,
Right.
Whereas with this, you can feel it and you can project yourself upon Marion. That's what's important to how you feel about her.
Yes.
But yeah, because without her saying it, you feel like that guy fucking deserved it. If she's going to rob anyone, it's got to be this asshole. And so you go on the journey that every character, the main characters take. And that's like this subconscious battle that's within all of us, the good and the evil, like the devil, like you said, the devil and the angel type thing.
Right.
Very early on, he's putting it into your head, the idea of split personalities too. Like he's getting you prepped for the twist he's going to give you at the end, to where like that twist doesn't seem so, it's out of left field, but it also doesn't seem so implausible.
Right.
Yeah. That's why every single scene after this, you're starting to build up paranoia and tension, with Marion and stuff that you would feel as you're going. Like she feels like everybody's looking at her and everybody's out to get her, and every situation she's getting, she's going to get caught, but really she's kind of getting away scot-free.
Right.
Almost.
Which is too good to be true for her.
Yeah. And all this really is to help with the twist he's going to throw at you in the middle of this fucking movie.
Right.
It's to help with that, because if you didn't feel anything for this character, you might be rooting when the shower scene happens, possibly one of the most famous shower scenes in film history. Right. When that happens, you might be rooting for it. You can't. Like he does not want you rooting for that. You don't. You don't want to go through the typical, like I said, like my film professor, he was fucking absolutely wrong. Hitchcock's goal was not to create a woman, an evil woman character who gets her comeuppance. That's not what his goal was. Is create this gray character that you can project yourself on, make you feel something for this character. And then when that twist happens, it really fucks with your gut. It drops your stomach, because as soon as that happens later on, what the fuck else is coming? But yeah, the whole thing completely goes against what audiences or, you as a viewer are wanting or expecting, Right.
It's night and Marion has to pull over to sleep because I guess I didn't realize that he lived so far away that she's going to be driving for a long time. And the next morning, a cop wakes her up. And she's acting weird, so the officer asks her for her license. When he goes to his car to check her license, she drives off. because she's just so paranoid that this cop knows that she has this money.
Yeah.
He knows who she is.
What's really funny about cops in a Hitchcock movie, I don't know if you noticed this by watching this, but this cop's scary as fuck.
Yeah.
Hitchcock always had a problem with police officers. He always had an unnatural fear of them because when he was younger, he had a run-in with the cops, and it just from then on out, it kind of warped his view of law enforcement. So whenever a cop is in his movies, they're like the corrupt people, or they're scary. Like this cop, you're kind of like, if you went into Psycho not knowing really what's going on, like it's kind of like, is the cop the psycho? Like like right off, you're thinking a cop's the villain.
Right.
But that kind of helps with that paranoia you're supposed to be feeling along with Marion here.
Right. So then Marion goes to a car dealership and she wants to trade her car in for a different one. And the guy is trying to get her to like talk about it and all of this stuff, the dealer or whatever. She's like, no, just let's hurry up. And he's like being swindled by the buyer. This is weird. He's like, what? Well, the cop is across the street looking at her. And finally, Marion hurries them up. They finalize the sale and Marion drives off.
I wish buying a car was this easy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh man, could you imagine just going in and getting a car? Like,
I've never bought a car before, so I don't know.
I've bought a car and it has taken 12 hours.
Oh my God,
That's the longest I've sat around waiting for car shit to happen. It is the longest process of your entire life.
Oh, I don't want to do that.
It's terrible. It's worse than birth. Not pain-wise, but just pure waiting around. It's awful. It's awful. And they always have the worst coffee. And the AC kind of works in the lobby, but kind of not. So you're kind of sweating a little. And and the TV's never on. It's just fucking god awful.
That's so annoying.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
So I love these edits that they do here when she's driving and stuff, because we're looking dead on at her driving, but we can hear what the other people are saying, like the conversations that they're having after she leaves.
Yeah.
And in this conversation, her boss is looking for her and her sister's worried. And the dude that the money was from, he says that he will take it out of her flesh. Like he's like pissed off that his money's gone.
Well, I always took that as that's what's going on inside her head. Like she's thinking that's what people are saying about her.
Oh.
That's what I took it as. It's fine to read whatever you wanted to.
I just thought it was the conversations that people were having.
Either way, it keeps the movie going.
Right. Because we don't need to see that those conversations are happening.
Right.
But we can hear them.
It also establishes that she has a sister.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they call her sister. Because they're worried. Her boss is genuinely worried about her until they realize that the money's gone.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, fuck. She ran off with the money.
Yeah, that's also a neat trick that Hitchcock pulls along with editor Tomasini. He forces you to feel like exactly what she's thinking and stuff. And that's how I read it. You read whatever you want into a movie. I love different reading, so you're totally cool. Nothing's invalid. But he creates tension through that too, but also gives you a door to become a subjective character in the plot. You feel like you're a part of this movie.
Right.
He even takes time to let you think upon the situation. With, like I said, with those little moments, you get to sit there and contemplate what she has done along with her. It's not just her doing it. It's also you. Like you thinking about what would I do in this situation? Like, how would I handle this? Would I go? Would I go back? Would I steal the money? Most of us, unless you're lying to yourself, are probably like, well, I've already done it. Let's just keep going.
I'm already getting away with it.
I'm already getting away with it. Let's just keep it going.
Right.
Yeah. And like he also gives her no privacy. I don't know if you noticed that. There is no privacy for this main character.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout this. Even when she goes into the bathroom at the car dealership, he does that high up angle and stuff. And you get to see again with the mirrors and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's just no privacy for her whatsoever. So like that world collapsing in on her keeps going. It gives the definite anxiety. That
she's having. Yeah, it gives that feel for sure.
Yeah, totally. And it also helps when she gets to the hotel, because you feel the weirdest thing happens to you when she arrives at this motel. Mm-hmm. You relax. it causes you to chill for a minute.
Like she's got a second.
Yeah,
she
there
can
is
just
a
chill
lull.
out. Yeah.
Because it does feel like, hey, she's gotten away with this.
Right.
You kind of forget for a moment, I'm watching Psycho. Even if you've seen this before, you kind of want her to get away with it.
Well, yeah.
Like you still, to this day, I'm still like, oh, we're at the motel. Oh, no. Oh, that's
no.
right. We're at the wrong motel.
So it's pouring now, and Marion stops off at the Bates Motel. It's dark, it's pouring rain, whatever. And she's met with Norman, who lives on the property, owns it, runs it, whatever. And he tells her that she is just 15 miles from where Sam lives, but it's too stormy for her to drive there tonight. So Norman invites her to the house to have dinner with him because he's got a house with his mother. I really didn't want to say that. Off behind this motel. She agrees, but she wants to get changed first. Then she hears Norman inside the house arguing with his mother about bringing Marion there.
Now, this is what I talked about, like when Anthony Perkins first arrives here. You are kind of charmed by him because he does seem like the sweet, just normal kind of shy dude.
Yeah, and you kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah,
because you know that his motel doesn't get checked into because she's like, you got a vacancy? He's like, I got 12.
Yeah,
12 cabins, 12 vacancies.
He seems genuinely excited to see someone that he can work his wares on. You know what I mean? But like, and so like at first you do get that sense of relaxation, like from this. You're like, okay. And the way I'll talk about this movie, you guys, you're gonna have to bear with me because I'm talking like if you're watching this for the first time and you've never seen that.
Right.
You know, you do get like a sense of relaxation because Hitchcock was so, like I said, he was a genius at keeping this under wraps, barely even showing what the plot really was. So when you did sit down to watch this, you didn't know that Norman Bates is a murderer.
Right.
You didn't know Norman Bates was a main character in this movie. It's probably just the shy guy who has the motel. Maybe she's going to wake up the next morning and decide she's got to go or go right now. But then that relaxation kind of goes away here in a minute.
Right.
It kind of starts going away with his mother.
Yes.
Like, that's where you're like, oh, I don't like this situation.
Yeah.
Anthony Perkins, though, what a fucking actor, man. Like, this guy, immediately he lights up this fucking screen. Like, he is interesting. But he would go on to portray Norman Bates, I believe, 3 more times after this. And yes, Psycho had sequels. And while unnecessary, they are still, they're very fun movies and very good. You know, that 4th one is a little rough, but it's directed by my man, Mick Garris. So I'll go with it. It acts as a prequel.
That's too many.
You'd think so, but really, they kind of only run out of steam by the 4th one. Like, it felt like 2 and 3 were genuinely needed. And I believe Anthony Perkins directs two out of the sequels.
Oh,
2
wow.
and 3. 2 picks up after he gets out of the mental institution. Like, so it's years later, you know, decades later.
Wow.
And they updated themselves for the time periods that they came out in. Like the 80s is when these started coming around. Mm-hmm. And so they're more violent and more sensible to the slasher kind of mentality of the era.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're great. And Anthony Perkins, you know, and not a lot has been said. I have a love and hate relationship with Norman Bates as well, because I feel like Anthony Perkins was much more than Norman Bates.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like I said, at the time, before playing Norman, Perkins was actually considered the new James Dean. You know, he was the new hot kid, teen heartthrob. You know, he was that type that came out around the 50s and 60s. It was like a mix of masculine and femininity. You know, girls loved him and stuff, and men wanted to be him and shit like that. You know, definitely a new James Dean type. But this role had him tackle something much more intricate than what he had been doing. For Hitchcock, Perkins, his embodiment of the nice, sensitive guy, he uses as a weapon in this movie. You know, especially, like I said, he lulls you into a sense of relaxation when he comes on screen because he's a very good looking man. You know, when he walks into frame, I mean, he's a good looking guy.
Oh, yeah.
Not who you'd consider to be a hulking psychopath. You know, you see the title Psycho, you're not expecting little old Normie to come out of the back office and welcome you to the motel. I mean, now you do. You know, to this day now, the idea of a very attractive, unassuming killer is kind of old hat by this point, you know. Like that's just simple. That's how the psychopath is portrayed nowadays. It's unassuming, very attractive, you know?
Right.
And at the time that this movie came around, the psychopath wasn't what we knew them to be in film. That's not saying they weren't looking like normal people. No, that's not really what I mean. It's more about how complex they get after Norman. You know,
right.
Before, a killer in a film was pretty much kind of flat, you know, good character, but they either had a motive or they didn't. And they were pretty much just killed. And we spent most of the movie kind of looking at their crimes and waiting for them to get caught, you know,
right.
Just spending time with a madman. Most of the time you didn't feel an attraction to them either. You weren't supposed to, you know. Take my favorite Fritz Lang film, M. No one found Peter Lorre attractive or charming in that movie. He was a child murderer, you know. Look up Peter Lorre if you want to know what I'm talking about. But like in the novel, in fact, you know, Norman is actually much closer to a Peter Lorre than he is Perkins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Block describes Norman in the novel as a cross between, and I'm paraphrasing, a cross between a child and a man, you know.
That makes sense.
Yeah. He's kind of like a child's mind trapped in an adult's mind. It's a complex character at the same time, but the way Norman looks in the novel is completely opposite of what we have here. He's a big, imposing, tall dude with a big old fat belly and these short, like hairless arms and stuff, and balding and thick rimmed glasses.
Oh,
what you would expect a psychopath to be, you know, if this dude came out of the back office, you're like, I got to get going.
I'm going. I'm not staying here today.
Yeah. Get the fuck out of this place. Yeah, so basically he looked like a psycho in the novel. But towards the late 50s, the characters started getting more complex, like 1955's Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum. You know, Robert Mitchum was a hot motherfucker in that movie, you know, but at the same time, he's scary as fuck, but not as complex, you know, as Norman. I feel like Norman really brought something to the psychopath in cinema, which is the mentality.
Right.
You know,
right.
And this is probably, you know, around the late 50s, early 60s, Freudian psychoanalysis was coming into fashion.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's when we really started exploring the depths of the human mind, started probing around in there, sometimes literally.
A lot of times, literally.
Yeah. This is, in fact, it was around this time that we discovered that past trauma or parental abuse or complications with your parents could possibly turn someone into a monster later on. And you'd never know it by looking at them. You know, right. That's where what Norman brings to cinema's psychopaths.
Yeah, because you look at him, you just think he's a normal dude.
Yeah, he's unassuming until you start spending a lot of time with him.
Right.
You know,
that's
Anthony,
why he ain't got no friends.
And Anthony Perkins, you know, he really did bring Norman to life in this movie because Anthony Perkins and pretty much all the cast, including Janet Leigh, were allowed to improvise a little bit as long as it didn't mean moving the camera too much.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like they couldn't improvise their body maneuvers too much, but their lines and stuff, they could give it the tics of their characters. They could give them their own attitudes, the way they behaved in the shot. They could give that to them. So a lot of this was probably improvised by Anthony Perkins himself. In fact, it was his idea to have that bag of candy corn he has throughout this movie.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Every once in a while,
I didn't realize.
It's just like I said, it's just a little thing. Like every once in a while, he'll pull out this bag of candy corn and start munching, and it's kind of telegraphs Norman's inability to let go to the past, that child mentality he still clings on to.
Right.
You know, it could also be an extension of the character's interest in taxidermy. You know, how birds peck at seed, but you know that's up for debate. Again, I'm getting real film school.
That sounds
Brittany's glazing over.
Really technical for no reason. Just not necessary to dive that deep into something. I thought he was just enjoying a little snacky snack, and that's all I care about.
But if you notice, like at times when he's nervous or something, like he might be getting found out, he starts fidgeting with his fingers, you know, biting his nails, stuff a child would do. You know, he reverts to that child mentality throughout this movie.
Child?
No.
Where's my candy corn?
It's my candy corn. I love candy corn. I get it, Norman. Candy corn's delicious. Does that make me a psychopath?
Well, you were sitting here talking, and I was really thinking
You were
about
glazing
it.
over. I'm so sorry. I apologize to the listeners, but this movie, I could teach a whole fucking lecture on this.
We'll do it.
Yeah, on characterization too, because that's another thing. Like these characters are so like Norman Bates himself is so fleshed out and he feels lived in. When you meet him, you feel like he's a real person, not just someone playing a character.
Right.
Yeah. For Perkins, Norman really did change his life. Some would say for the better, some would say for the worst. After Psycho, he did some international dramas and thrillers before returning to Hollywood and doing Pretty Poison, which again had him playing another psychopath. And he'd go on to direct 2 of the sequels, like I said. And sadly, Perkins passed in 92 from AIDS.
Oh.
Yeah, he was always a closeted man,
Right.
Anthony Perkins lived such a tortured life. He went through conversion therapy.
Oh.
Because I gotta think about like what it was that Hollywood did to him. When he was dating Tab Hunter, the Hollywood executives would yell at him and stuff. It's like, you've got to not do this. You got to not date him. You got to not be seen, because they didn't hide it so well.
Right.
I think I talked in what John Waters movies was that the Tab Hunter was in that we talked about? Polyester. We talked about Tab Hunter and his relationship. We touched on it a little bit, where they would show up at different times at the theater and stuff like that, but they were always seen hanging around. And so the studio was like, hey, you're attracting, because they kind of knew about his sexuality, but again, he never really wanted it out. And neither did the studio, because that would ruin their up and coming star, because they were they were pushing him to be that James Dean teen heartthrob at the time.
Right. So they couldn't have
so
him
they couldn't
being
have
gay.
him being gay. I mean, if you were gay, again, gay was a death sentence at the time.
Right.
Gay was a death sentence up until the 90s.
Obviously.
He kept it a secret.
He died. I mean,
yeah, he kept it a secret forever. Never officially came out or anything. Kept that secret. Like I said, he went through conversion therapy because of how pushed he was into it. Tab Hunter and him broke up because of the studio interference. And, he had another man. He had another relationship with a man. I can't remember the guy's name, but that would go on. And then, I'd have to make up another podcast for Anthony Perkins. He's a very interesting man, because like he was forced into conversion therapy for years, tried to be straight.
That's so sad.
Years he tried his damnedest to be a straight man, even marrying a woman, having 2 kids and living with her he was with the woman for 40 years. They loved each other. No, nothing wrong with that. But I doubt they were, it's sad.
That's really sad.
It's a sad life he lived. Never got to come out. I believe he left a note, because people, when he died of AIDS in 92, people were like, well, how did this happen? What happened here? And the note he left behind basically said, I was never one to be noble. And he said, like, I didn't think that what an old actor was going through would amount to a hill of beans in everyone's eyes. So it's just a very interesting, lovely person that really didn't deserve the fate he got, And if like I said, if anyone deserves a biopic, it's Anthony Perkins, and I'm so shocked that it hasn't happened yet, because he very interesting person.
That's really sad.
and he left us with one of horror's greatest villains. Norman Bates is up there, man. You got to include Norman Bates in.
And
some
I
of the
really
greatest.
wonder too. I was thinking about this when you were talking. Was after going through conversion therapy, like I don't know when he did that in his career, but
he did that closer to mid 70s, I believe.
Okay,
because he got married to. I can't remember her name, but he got married to her in 77, I believe.
So here's the thing, though. Like, did he played this role multiple times as a psychopath with multiple personalities? Did he start to think that was him?
Well, Tab Hunter kind of talked about something one time where he was talking about, as an actor, we do get used to wearing a mask, you know,
Right.
giving everybody the life they want to see us live. And he said, and sometimes you can definitely lose yourself in that, you know, lose yourself in trying to give the public what you think, because again, you know, it was 92 by the time he died. It was still not okay.
Right.
You know, Hollywood still saw that as a fucking terrible thing if you were out and gay. Yeah, we talked about with Mark Patton on Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. You know, like he considers that movie kind of ruined his career when it came out. Gave him fame, but also ruined his career because it kind of telegraphed that he was gay.
Right.
You know, so like he probably spent so much time trying to give everybody that so he wouldn't ruin his career, because he went on to direct movies. I mean, he had a successful life there. Right. But like Tab Hunter said, he probably lost himself in that, you know, which is a sad thing when you think about it. And yeah, like I said, he was never out officially. It was always a rumor.
That's so sad. So sad. Anyway, back to the movie. So Norman comes back with a tray of food, and they agree to go into this creepy parlor to eat. And Norman likes taxidermy, and he has a few stuffed birds in this parlor. And they talk about his mother and how she is ill, and how she talks bad to him. But he says he doesn't hate her; he just hates her illness.
I love the line. Of course, it's said everywhere. You know, we all go a little mad sometimes. Later on, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But Norman gets mad when Marion suggests that he put her in a facility, to help take care of her, so the burden's not all on him.
Yeah, we're literally having like somewhat of a parlor scene here, but sorry, I couldn't resist. But I love this little back and forth they have, you know, like this is where you start feeling something slipping with Norman here, you know,
yeah,
especially,
it's a little weird,
especially when she approaches the subject of his mother.
Right. Yeah. Did Hitchcock love birds or something?
Okay, I'm not exactly sure he loved them.
Okay.
I think he had like I know he had a weird fear of taxidermy too. Yeah.
So let me just throw that in my fucking movie? Like what?
Well, I think most of the greatest people throw stuff that they find creepy into their horror movies, you know, like taxidermy has always been like a creepy little hobby that people have, especially the people that don't do it for a living.
Wait, is that why there's a lot of dicks in your movie? Because you've been so scared of them?
Exactly. I was so scared of the D for the longest time that I've just flooded my movie with dicks. It's kind of true, though. I mean, it does play into the theme my movie's going for. But no, like a lot of what you see in his movies are a lot of fears he personally had. So, like, while I don't know it off the top of my head, he might have been. I don't know.
Because I know he did the movie The Birds or whatever, and then there's a bunch of fucking taxidermy birds in this movie.
Think the taxidermy birds really represent just something's off about old Normie here, because Norman's not doing this for a living. You know, and the thought of someone, which I don't think it's a big fucking deal. Like I think taxidermy is kind of fucking cool, but like the thought of someone not doing it for a living and doing it as a hobby is kind of creepy at first, you know?
Marion tells Norman that she wants to go to bed because she's going to drive back to Phoenix in the morning, like super early. Mm-hmm. So she goes back to her room, and we see that Norman can watch her from a hole in the wall of the parlor.
And this is immediately where the nice thing stops being nice, because you're like, okay,
oh yeah,
what's this now?
He's
a peeping Tom, huh?
Yeah, this is not okay. And she's not naked, but she's in her underwear.
You know he's messing around.
Oh
through
yeah,
that hole. You know he's fucking around.
Messing around through the hole. That made it sound like a glory hole for a second?
No, not a glory hole. It's not a glory hole. It's just a peeping hole. Quite a difference. You hear him behind the wall. It's not a glory hole. It's a peeping hole. It's all okay. It's not. It's less creepy this way. It's okay. Just watching.
Oh my gosh!
You're supposed to be talking.
No, it's okay. It's not a glory hole.
Oh my gosh. Anyway. So Marion gets in the shower and we see that someone is in the bathroom with her. Well, they open the curtain and stab her to death.
Oh,
and
man.
it looks like maybe it's Mother because it's a person in a dress with long hair in a ponytail.
Right. And so like, what can I say about the shower scene that hasn't already been fucking covered? I mean, the Bosco syrup in place of blood, genius, because the black and white makes it look like that. He could have very well shot this in color if he wanted it to, but it's cheaper to do black and white. So he used Bosco syrup, which is a brand of chocolate syrup, as a blood. You know, 'cause
Right.
It looks good. It looks dark as blood. And you see, I love that transition where it goes from her eyeball to the drain as the blood circling around. And also like the fucking shower head. He built a false shower head, like a slightly bigger shower head to film it in a way when it turns on, so it doesn't hit the camera. It goes all the way around. He blocked out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he blocked out the holes in this shower head they built so that the spray would go around so he could shoot it that way. So all this technical ingenuity, because you got to remember, this is 1950 something. I think they shot this in 58 or something, 59, and it's 1960. You got to think we're working with giant cameras. Now think about this scene, the way it's shot. You're tight over here, like just all these tight shots, and the way it's edited, it feels claustrophobic, you know? And that's where that fucking fear comes from. And dearly, I swear to God, if somebody tells you that they don't have a fear when they close their eyes that someone might be on the other side of that shower curtain, they're lying to you. Because the idea of opening my eyes and seeing a silhouette in a shower curtain of someone I don't know in the bathroom, that comes directly from Psycho. That is a fear that comes directly from this.
Is that why we have a clear shower curtain?
Oh yeah, I love clear shower curtains. I don't like the foggy ones. They spook me.
They spook you.
Because really, like, think about it. Like, that's where that fear comes from, is getting stabbed to death in your shower. You know, it comes directly from this. This movie did for showers what Jaws did for the ocean.
Bum, bum, bum.
Dun, dun, dun. And of course, you got that Herman score over top of it. Bernard Herrmann. And Hitchcock originally wanted to do this all silent. You know, he wanted the sound to drop out as she's getting stabbed, which would have been brutal, sure. But that Bernard Herrmann score going over top of it is just the icing on the fucking cake. Because, and when Hitchcock saw that, you know, because he scored it and then let Hitchcock see it. And when he saw it, he changed his mind completely. He was like, yeah, let's go with that. Because that's that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. and you got blood. That's what's crazy about this movie. Of course, you don't see like her getting brutally fucking stabbed. It doesn't like
right.
You know, if this
and
was
she's
made,
not naked.
Yeah. If
I
this,
mean, you don't see her naked.
No, they film it in a way to where you don't see her completely nude. Which some of the people who were watching this, like that were detested by it, swore you could see the nipples. But I was
what?
like, I think you're inventing the nipples, my friend. But no, and just the way they keep Norman's mother, quotation marks, in the silhouette, you know, as she's stabbing her. That's fucking horrifying.
Oh, yeah.
And Janet Leigh herself was frightened to showers.
Oh,
after
wow.
this. Yeah, after she did this, for the longest time, she took mostly baths. But yeah, this scared people so much. I remember I was reading that like Hitchcock got an angry letter from a parent where their daughter had seen Les Diaboliques like years prior to that, and there's a murder in a bathtub for that. So he was like, she was scared to take a bath after Les Diaboliques, and then you come out with Psycho. Now she's afraid to take showers. And,
Oh my
and
God.
Alfred Hitchcock's reply to this man was, well, then send her to the dry cleaners.
Oh, no.
Oh man, Alfred Hitchcock, I always considered him like the silent William Castle. You know how William Castle was so bombastic with spooking you and stuff like that.
Right.
Alfred Hitchcock was more reserved. You know, I always thought they had a nice friendly rivalry together when they were doing pictures, but I always thought it would be so neat to watch them collaborate. If they could have collaborated on something together, that would have been so fucking awesome. Because they were both showmen in their own way. I mean, the promo material for this and the promo material for a lot of his films, Alfred Hitchcock would shoot videos himself. Like for The Birds, He has it open up and he's like, good evening. And he's like talking about how you got a picture coming out and stuff like that. And then a bird just kills him. Like it just comes out of the frame and just cuts his neck open. Like, so they were showmen, you know. Alfred Hitchcock was definitely a showman.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But no, to this day, I haven't, a scene like this doesn't exist in movies anymore. I don't know. There's something about the magic of editing with this.
It's true. It's like I don't know how to explain it. Like you see enough, but you don't see, and you kind of leave some of it up to the imagination.
Yeah, the brutality. It's the same thing that kind of like what Tobe Hooper did with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Sure, there's little bits of blood here and there, but you don't see a chainsaw going through someone. But after you've watched it, you swear to God that chainsaw went through that crippled man. Like you swear it happened, but it did. It doesn't. You don't see that chainsaw go into anybody. And so it's the same with this. You don't technically see that knife go into anyone.
Right.
Yeah, it cuts away right as it hits her, you know, so you don't see that knife go in. But after this is brutal. You're like, I just saw a woman get fucking butchered.
Yes.
Like Janet Leigh got straight up murdered, bitch. And that's how, I mean, aside from that, I doubt anyone in 1960 was yelling that out, but but that's how the audience reacted. You know, this was a fucking roller coaster. Holy shit, our main character just got butchered. Is this the end of the movie? What's going on?
So then we see Norman running out of the house, and he had heard screaming, so he goes to check on Marion, and he sees that she's dead. So then he ends up cleaning up the scene. Like he mops everything up. He's like real thorough with his cleaning, and he ends up taking all of the stuff that he needs to get rid of, putting it in her car, and he sinks her car into the swamp. I feel like I summed up 30 minutes of this movie in just like 2 sentences, because it takes him a really long time to clean this up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, what's cool about this is like, you immediately get the doubting son, you know, like he's covering up for his mom is what's happening here. Like he knows something's wrong with her and she's murdering people. I like how he goes up there and Hitchcock had the bass taken out of his voice. Cause if you notice when he says that line where he's like, mother, blood, like, he took the bass out of Anthony Perkins' voice when he does that line, so it sounds more like a child.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's real creepy as a child. What also helps with this, what kind of helps you sell the fact that maybe Norman isn't doing this, because if you're watching this fresh, well, let me ask you, you watched this the first time. This is so cool. I get to talk to someone who watched this for a first time a long time ago and knows that feeling. Did you think that Norman was killing people?
No. I did not.
You thought it was the mother?
I was really confused.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think the mother was like capable of that. But I didn't. I guess in my mind, I thought it was like another, like maybe a brother or a sister or something.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe more like a sister that he had that he was calling mother, maybe. I did not think it was him, because this really confused me right here where he comes running out of the house after Marion died, because we don't know what time frame.
Yeah, because in your head, you piece it together because, you know, I think Mother says something about the dirty women and stuff like that later.
Right.
On. But you do piece it together that, okay, she caught him looking at Marion, you know, with lust or something. And so she killed Marion. So you get that piece together in your head and you really do kind of think that maybe the mom is doing that, or maybe not, you know, you don't know, but you don't necessarily jump right to Norman's doing it.
Right.
You know, which is exactly what Hitchcock wanted you to do, because, okay, so Hitchcock wrote I think it was James P. Cavanaugh who wrote an early draft, and Cavanaugh had worked on Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He'd worked on that, but that first draft to Hitchcock felt more like a TV show. You know, he thought it felt like more of a TV horror movie, and so he wanted to go somewhere else, and so he brought Joseph Stefano in. Now Stefano had only worked on like one picture prior to this, so he was relatively new to feature films. But I guess like after Hitchcock and him met, you know, they hit it off, and so they went with it, and so him and Hitchcock worked together on the screenplay. And that's where the changes to Norman happen, because in the book, like I said, Norman is not he's not a great guy. In fact, like some of the habits he has, I mean, he drinks heavily, and that's when in his drunken stupor, that's when mother comes out and stuff. It's not necessarily a mental illness he has. It's mostly drinking. And he also has a porn addiction in the novel and just everything that makes him terrible,
Right.
So, but also it does have that twist in the novel, that it turns out to be not mom. It's Norman being mother.
Right.
It does have that twist in the novel, but Stefano, he said that the novel cheats too much with that because there's extended conversations between Norman and mother.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how the novel cheats it. With this, they didn't have that luxury because that would get boring after a while. So you had to make Norman this unassuming person to give you that feeling when he comes running out of the house that maybe he is trying to cover up for mother. He knows she's a psychopath. Right. That's why because at the very beginning, he keeps trying to get, okay, maybe we don't go into the house. Maybe we eat down here, he's very not against her meeting mother.
Right.
I mean, you don't know it's because mother's a fucking corpse, but
she is mummified.
Yeah. But you do get the feeling that, okay, maybe she's psychopath and he doesn't want, there's the psycho, you don't immediately jump to that. But if he did look like this big old hulking monster who fucking drank too much and looked at way too many porn magazines, you would assume, that you would jump immediately that he's killing people.
Right.
It's the difference between visual and written.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Lila, Marion's sister, goes to see Sam and says that she hasn't heard from Marion and she's mad because she thinks that Marion stole this money and went to see Sam and that Sam's hiding her. Well, a PI named Arbogast says that he is there to collect the money that Marion stole. And Sam swears he isn't there, but the PI says that she is somewhere in this town because where there's a boyfriend, there's going to be a Marion. Is basically what he says. So he starts going around town asking anyone and everyone if they've seen her or whatever. And he goes to the Bates Motel because, like I said before, it's only 15 miles from this town.
Right.
So Arbogast is asking Norman all kinds of questions, and Norman is stumbling because he's very nervous. He's like, oh shit, she was here, she's dead now. Like, what do I say?
And this is where the movie takes a swing into classic kind of Hitchcock territory, because the rest of the movie is going to focus more on the investigation of her murder.
Right.
But he's doing the classic Hitchcock maneuver with tension where we know what has happened, but the characters don't.
Right.
And so it's that whole thing where I think I've explained this to you before. His idea of creating tension was to show the audience the bomb. That's the word he used. The scene would be like two people sitting at dinner, show the audience the bomb, but the two people sitting around don't fucking know the bomb's there, but you're seeing a time clock tick down.
Right.
So there's fucking tension. And so he kind of does that here.
Yes, because we know what Norman at least covered it up. That's what we know.
Yeah, that's the extent you're going with if this is a fresh watch, of course.
Right. So Arbogast says that he'll get a warrant if he has to check the rooms. But Norman's like, no, I'll show you around. I'm tidying up. You can come with me to do that. And Arbogast wants to talk to Mother, and they argue back and forth for a bit. And Arbogast decides that he's just going to go get this warrant to go talk to the mother. So he drives off. He ends up going to a payphone to call Lila. And they agree that they're going to meet up in about an hour to come up with a plan. They're going to meet at Sam's house. Mm-hmm. So Arbogast ends up going back because he's going to sneak into Norman's house. He's like,
right.
He told Norman that he's going to leave and go get a warrant. So he thinks Norman's not going to suspect that he's there, whatever.
Well, it's almost a twist with Arbogast too here. Just like a little mini twist, because you do think like, oh, he's hot on the trail here.
Right.
Like this guy's going to solve the crime.
No. Because he ends up going into Norman's home. And when he walks up the stairs, he gets attacked by this woman, I'm using air quotes here, from before, and he ends up falling down the stairs, and then she kneels down and starts stabbing him more.
Yeah. Now, this scene of him going up the stairs, like at one point, a series of shots were done with Arbogast going up the stairs in the Bates house, were done by assistant director Hilton A. Green. Now, the problem with those shots was, and this comes from Hitchcock himself. He had said like the shots weren't right because you saw a sinister man going up the stairs. You know, it made Arbogast look too sinister, because that's the thing. Arbogast can't be portrayed as sinister for this to happen, you know, for you to feel something when he gets killed. You know, that's what's cool about this movie is each individual person you do kind of care about, like sort of, you know, at least in passing, especially with Arbogast, because again, you get shocked because you think, oh, he's gonna find the killer, maybe, you know, solve this, and no, he gets fucking offed, right. And again, you're left with what the hell, what the fuck are we gonna do here? Oh, I don't know. And so later on, you know, to avoid that, Hitchcock later reshot the scene. And a little of the cut footage actually made its way into the film. Supposedly, I don't know. You get this cool falling scene from Arbogast during this, when he gets stabbed and he falls backwards, and that was rigged up by like this chair device that would roll him back, the actor, and also the camera at the same time. So you're with the camera and Arbogast and you're falling at the same time. That's what gives it that weird feeling. You know, when he's falling backwards, if you notice, it's an odd look as he's going. It's real
almost
creepy.
Dream-like.
Yeah, it's real creepy and real disturbing. Yes. Almost, you know. And Hitchcock was known for that kind of shit. I mean, he's one of the ones that really implemented the dolly zoom, which is the zoom where you zoom out while you're pushing in with the camera, or you push out while you're zooming in. I don't know. But it gives that weird feeling. The most famous scene I can point to people to give them a perfect example of a dolly zoom is the scene in Jaws when Roy Schreider's character looks up while he's sitting on the beach, and it looks like the background zooms out from behind him and you zoom in on him, though. It's a real cool effect that he did. He kind of perfected that in I believe that was Vertigo that he did that in. But
I don't know. We've talked about dolly zoom a lot, so I don't know.
It's one of my favorite little camera tricks. That and Dutch angles, you guys. I fucking love them. I know they're old hat, and everybody's like, "Oh, don't use Dutch angles," and I'm like, "Dutch angles are fucking fun. You let me have my Dutch angles."
Is that why you were rolling around on a skateboard on your belly?
No, that was to test out a little camera technique I wanted to put. That's another thing, man. When you're doing movies, keep inventing camera techniques. You don't have to stick to the old hat tricks. You know, you can invent your own shit.
Yeah.
Go nuts. Yeah. It's your painting.
Paint it away.
Paint with your dick, whatever. Whatever makes you happy.
Safely.
Safely, yes. Acrylic base is probably fine. And that's interesting. I did want to bring that up because I was wondering if you did notice a lot of the camera techniques that he uses that kind of sets a Hitchcock film apart from another horror movie that came around in the 60s.
I mean, I guess if I watched more movies.
If you watched more of his movies, I understand, because because that's the thing. Hitchcock is an auteur. You know, a distinctive style of a director, you know, right? Like a lot of old black and white movies, if I put them out in front of you, you probably wouldn't be able to pick out the directors. But like if you had seen more Hitchcock, and if you see more William Castle or more of, you know, Guffaw or something like that, you would know, like, you would be able to pick their movies out from the bunch because of that distinctive style. The same way like Quentin Tarantino. You can see a Quentin Tarantino movie from a mile away. You can pick it out from the lot of other movies. Right. You know, that's what an auteur is. It's just a distinctive style. Right. But I did wonder if you noticed those camera moves. But sorry. Again, you guys, I feel like I'm boring people to tears with this one. But the reason it also looks a certain way, the way Psycho looks and the way it's shot, if you notice, it kind of looks like you're in the scene, like you're looking at this, like you don't feel the camera at all.
Right.
You feel like you're in a room with these people.
Absolutely.
That's because he shot this with 50 millimeter lenses with 35 millimeter cameras. Now, what that does is provides angles and stuff that are similar to human vision. This is as close to human vision as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this movie looks like you're in the room with everybody. It adds to that thing I said earlier about the subjective character and voyeurism.
I see.
Class gets out about 8, you guys. I'm sorry.
I'm taking note. No, I'm not.
Pop quiz next week.
I won't be there. I'm calling
Do they get
out.
pop quizzes in college?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went to college and I don't even remember a lick of it. That's how awesome college is.
Oh yeah.
Don't pay. Don't get college.
Don't do
loans.
it.
Anyway.
So Lila and Sam get worried, so Sam decides to drive out to the motel. When he gets there, he doesn't find anyone, and he goes back to Lila and says that he didn't see anyone except an old lady unable to answer the door. So they decide to talk to the sheriff. It's late at night, by the way. The sheriff basically says that their PI sucks and took off to find Marion and the money. I don't know. That's how I took it. Maybe that's not what he said.
He's kind of hitting around to like, okay, he probably found her and she paid him. She paid him off.
Right.
That's what he's getting at.
Right. But they decide to call the motel and talk to Norman. And Norman just says that Arbogast was there and left and didn't return. That's the only story that they know so far. And Lila is very adamant that he would have called her. Arbogast would have called her because he called her about something so silly. Why would he not call her if he thought he found Marion?
Right.
So Lila says that Arbogast was supposed to go back and talk to the mother, but the sheriff tells them that the mother's been dead for 10 years in a murder-suicide.
Dun, 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 the plot thickens. Like,
Right.
I love how this line is delivered by the actor who plays the sheriff, because it does kind of drop your stomach a little bit. It is like, oh, shit.
He was like, if you saw an old woman, it wasn't
it
wasn't
Norma.
Mrs. Bates.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And he was like, she died 10 years ago in a murder. So they said that she killed her husband because he was having an affair, and then she killed herself, poisoned herself after she poisoned him. And he says that if they all saw the mother in the window, then who is buried in the cemetery?
Oh, man, I love that line. I love that fucking line because
Dun,
it really
dun,
does.
dun.
Like, even though, like I said, I've seen this a million times, but I have the ability to suspend that shit. And so, like, when a line like that line drops, you're like, and then of course I'm like, oh wait, I know what happens. What am I?
Right. So then we hear Norman talking to his mom, and he says that he has to hide her for a few days. And she's like saying, no, don't do that. And he ends up carrying her to this basement or cellar or whatever. And she's not very happy about it. So the next day, the sheriff is leaving the church, and he tells Sam and Lila that he went out to the motel and he talked to Norman, and he just said what he had told the PI. And the sheriff doesn't think anything is wrong. He said, I didn't find any funny business there.
Yeah.
So Lila and Sam decide that they're going to go to the motel and pretend to be a couple needing a room, and they're going to search every inch of the motel. Well, Lila is very adamant that something happened to Arbogast, and they must keep looking for Marion. Sam goes to talk to Norman while Lila sneaks into the house to talk to the mother. And while she's looking around, Sam is pissing Norman off by accusing him of stealing this money and, I guess, getting rid of Marion. So Norman gets so pissed off that he ends up knocking Sam out, and he goes into the house.
Yeah, which I like. Man, I love this racking up at the tension of them two arguing. I like, again, with fucking Anthony Perkins, man. Like, just the performance he's giving here.
Oh, yeah. So Lila hears Norman coming, and she goes to hide in the cellar. This is where she finds a mummified Mrs. Bates.
Man, so to, it doesn't look like much, but to get this shot just right, to get this effect right, get that chair to spin around, they had to do a few retakes, which is uncharacteristic of Alfred Hitchcock. He didn't do a lot of retakes.
Oh, really?
You know, he did maybe a few takes and then move on. But he didn't like doing retake after retake, you know. And so like, you know, there was problems where she had to reach up, pull that light without looking up. Mm-hmm. And of course, like you do that, you're not going to grab that chain each time. So she kept hitting the light and stuff like that. The chair wouldn't spin right because you had to have everything go off at the right time.
Right. Perfect timing.
You know, yeah. You had to have her reach up, look forward, pull the light. And then you had to have that chair swivel in a way that it looked good when the light is swinging back and forth. And those shadows, the use of shadows in this movie is also very important. It's another motif that goes through this, along with mirrors and water. It was water to a lesser extent, but you know, a lot of that. And so like, God, when the shadow hits that dead body and you realize what the fuck is going on, sort of at first, because even though it's a dead body, you still don't really fully comprehend what the fuck this is.
Right. Yeah, no. So Norman comes in dressed as his mother, and he's going to kill Lila, but Sam ends up being the hero, and he comes in and he stops him.
And like, again, just all this falls together, and we've drugged this out, but like that's a matter of seconds. You see this, you see the dead body, you see Norman dressed as his mother, and it all kind of falls into place for you. It's been Norman the whole time, and that's the big what the fuck, because I remember you saw this. You saw this, you were like, holy shit. Yes. Holy shit. And I was just clapping in my chair. Like, I was so happy. What did you feel like during this? Like when this happened? Did you really expect this kind of thing?
No, I did not. I was like, what the fuck? I thought there was just some crazy person living in Norman's house. And he's like trying to control this crazy person. I didn't think it was actually Norman. I thought it was just like, and I didn't even necessarily think it was the mother. To me, it was more like maybe it was like his crazy sister that maybe raised him or something. And that he called her mother because, you know, when someone raises you in a motherly figure, you're going to call them mother or whatever.
Right.
Especially if they're mentally insane and they want to be called that. I don't know. And so I thought he was just taking up for this person.
Yeah.
Not that he was this person. So at the police station, a psychiatrist comes in and he tells them that Norman has two personalities now. Half of his mind is his mother and the other half is his. Mm-hmm. And that he killed his mother and her lover out of jealousy 10 years ago.
And I like how, okay, so one of the cops does say, well, is he a, transvestite, which is an old term. It's an old school term. We don't use that anymore. But he says that. But I do like how the psychologist corrects him. It's like, no. I mean, he goes on to say some really terrible, outdated shit. Right. But he also says, no, that's not what he is. Yeah.
And he basically explains that Norman has always had issues beyond this 10 years ago thing,
which is basically like a dissociative personality disorder is what he would have at this point.
So then he says that Norman thought that the mother side of him was jealous too, so she would kill any woman that Norman was attracted to, because there's other people that are missing too, that they're linking to Norman doing this. And he tells them that the money is in the swamp with everyone else, or everything else. And Norman sits in a cell and we hear his mother talking about how she didn't do this. Like, this was all Norman and she's the one being blamed for it. So basically, like, talking shit to Norman about himself. But he's so fucked up in the mind, like,
yeah, because I love it. She looks at the fly, like, oh, they'll see if they're watching,
Yeah,
they'll say she wouldn't even swat a fly,
right?
And I love the stare he gives. He looks up, and then of course you get that little bit of superimposed skull over him, of Norman, his dead mother over it, and I swear to God, a lot of people disagree with me, but that's a Kubrick stare you're getting from Norman at the very end of this movie. And I was like, I think Kubrick kind of stole something from there. But anyway, maybe not. But no, like, what's crazy about that, in the corpse of Norman's mother, by the way, Alfred Hitchcock put like a bunch of those together. Like it wasn't just one corpse and he's done. He constructed several to try to see which one was more scary when the final twist happens.
Oh, that's cool.
What he would do would be put them in random places in Janet Leigh's dressing room.
Oh,
he would just hide them. And so like she would scream and stuff. She thought it was funny. She thought it was a funny joke, but she did say, I wonder if he was judging how scared I got of each of them. You know, to see which one he should put in the movie. The corpse even had its own fucking canvas chair with Mrs. Bates on the back of it. So,
and then the movie ends with them pulling Marion's car from the swamp.
So when Alfred Hitchcock watched this before Bernard Herrmann scored it, he was kind of upset. He thought that his experiment with trying to work the mood and toy with the audience had fucking failed. You know, because one of the reasons he did this movie was just because he was sick of these big budget, like big star studded movies that he was doing, like with Jimmy Stewart. He did one with Sean Connery, you know, like all these big stars and stuff like that. And so that was another reason he wanted to do this, a more toned down movie where he could really work and experiment with art, you know, see what he could do to an audience and stuff. And so he saw this and figured it's not great. So he was prepared to cut this thing into a TV show. He was like, well, the worst we could do is put it on the TV show. We put it on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, you know, cut it down into an episode. But when Bernard Herrmann returned the movie with the score completed and put on it, he was very happy. He was very happy. And I'm sure the studio was happy too, because while this cost, we talked about $800,000 to make, this movie earned more than $40 million.
Holy shit.
It was Sir Alfred Hitchcock's highest grossing movie of his entire career.
Wow.
Yeah. And just that's a lot of money for back then.
So I have a question. You said the actors took a cut to do this movie because it was all like, you know, we talked about that. Anyway,
not a big cut. They didn't take a giant cut. No, but they took a little bit off.
But when a movie grosses this much money, do they get paid more?
The thing is, a lot of money things and how money is exchanged in Hollywood, and I'll say this again, always take my little gross budgets and how much it costs to make a movie. Always take that shit with a grain of salt because you don't know exactly how much it costs.
Right.
This movie could have cost $10 million, but you might not know because it might have been exchanged. The hands may have been exchanged. Other things may have been paid. Inflation, you got to increase it for that. Not just inflation over time, but I mean like the budget gets inflated over time with other things just so they can take tax breaks. And so you don't know exactly how much something makes or how much something costs to make.
Right.
So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But yes, typically people get paid scale or they get paid scale in points.
Okay.
Which is they get paid their fee and then they get points for how much the movie makes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, points on the back end, I believe is what they call it. I don't know that 100% how that works. I'm sure eventually I'll learn that. but I do know it's not really, they don't get paid judging on how much a movie makes, or nobody would act in a movie, a big budget movie, you know. That's why a lot of these stars, they can star in these like stinkers of a movie that bombs tragically and loses the studio money, but the actors sitting pretty because they got paid their money.
No, I get that.
Yeah, so that's to protect the actor. They get paid an upfront fee.
No, I get that, but so there is a chance to make more.
There is other deals to be made.
If it takes off.
It doesn't happen very often, but there are little deals to make. Like somebody like Tom Cruise definitely makes more if his movie makes more. You know, someone like that would make more because he has better deals than like your regular movie stars, you know?
Right. But because it's not like TV shows like Friends, they get a stipend or whatever the fuck that's called every time. I'm sure they get checks once a month because they air this on different TV channels and stuff, right? Because they're still making money on Friends. So, but a movie's not like that, right? Or is it?
Yeah. Well,
or you don't know. I don't know.
It's a one time. You know, you get paid for this many amount of days.
That's what I was trying to say.
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Because again, movie budgets and stuff, real secretive, man.
Man, I stumped you.
Yeah. Like,
sorry.
Like the most I could come up with is how much an actor is paid at their base rate.
No, I get that. No, I get
that.
Like
I know Nicolas Cage costs $1 million if I want him in my movie.
Well, that's
yeah, right. I don't know though. I still wonder if one day I could raise $1 million and get Nicolas Cage in a movie.
If you raise $1 million just to get Nicolas Cage in a movie, I'm going to kick you in the nuts.
You would be so mad if you walked in and Nicolas Cage just hanging out smoking weed and we're making movies.
Yeah.
Oh, good. You know, my car's falling apart. Not in front of Nicolas Cage. Not in front of the cage, okay? Anyway. I'm so sorry. Okay, so of course this was a fucking hit, and so of course everybody was happy that they took the fucking things and went on with this. Universal Studios ended up getting all the rights from Paramount, and so that's why this is part of Universal Studios. But Psycho was released June 16th, 1960 at the DeMille Theater and also the Baronet in New York City. It marked the first time in the U.S. that no one would be admitted to the theater after the film started.
Oh.
That's right, to keep the plot and to keep the secret and the twists and stuff. No one got to come into the theater after the film started. You know, you had to be there.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, and that's not saying that's the first time in film history that has happened. I mean, Clouzot did that same thing in France for Les Diaboliques in 1955. Both directors believed that it was important to hide twists. You know, Psycho having 2 or 3, the way you look at it, man. This movie's a goddamn trip. Now, Hitchcock did most of the promotion for this himself, not having Perkins or Leigh make the usual rounds on radio or print interviews. And again, that was in order to keep the plot very secretive. And that's what I got to see with you, is your reaction to this with no tainted. I still, to this day, I don't understand how you avoided this. How, not the movie itself, but just avoided any spoilers.
I don't know.
I know some of our listeners are probably jealous as fuck of you that you got to watch Psycho and have a reaction that people back in 1960 had.
I don't know. Like, I didn't hang out with people that watch movies. I don't know. We didn't talk about movies.
You never heard any jokes about Norman Bates? You never had?
Maybe I did, but I never connected them.
God, you were lucky. That is so fucking odd. I don't understand too. You probably don't get it, but to a horror buff and a film fan like myself, that is awesome. To not have the taint and the stink of spoilers about an old classic movie, you know? Because there's some classic movies I haven't even watched just because I just know what they are. I don't feel the need to urgently go out and seek them, you know?
Right.
I haven't seen Robert Mitchum's The Night of the Hunter. I've never seen it. I might actually change that tonight. I was thinking about it when we were talking about it. But anyway. I am so jealous of you.
I guess. Cool. I watched a movie for the first time. Cool. That's how I see it.
Now, people who got to watch audience react to this for the first time said that audiences went through a fucking roller coaster of emotion with this, the mini twists and stuff, and that gut punch of Marion Crane dying so early. Of course, you could teach classes on Psycho now. It's an example of how low budget creates ingenuity, inventiveness. And if you have a good eye, you can create something that terrifies without it being supernatural and stuff.
Right. You
can really create something on with not many sets, you know, not many set pieces in this movie, but it's spectacular, you know. Of course, not everybody saw it that way upon its release. Like I said, this is a controversial fixture. Some places call it morally objectionable. And to this day,
would
you know,
hate this century.
Man, they would. Some of them lived until this century, by the way.
Yes.
But that's who's running the country. But the Crypt Keepers. But it's America, man. It's too much violence. Anyway. To this day, it's a violent film for 1960, you know? And I know a lot of you are used to me sitting here explaining why I like a movie at the end of this, but what the hell else do I have to say about Psycho? What else do I need to say about it other than it's fucking Psycho? Does
it hit your perfect list?
It does. It is one of my perfect movies. I do know a lot of people consider it old hat. You know, a lot of people say, oh, Psycho, it's overrated or it's not this and that. I suggest if you haven't watched it, since maybe some people have only watched it once, if you haven't watched it in a long time, sit down with it. You know, sit down in a quiet room and just let the movie soak over you. It's still like it feels so great. You know, it's still such a good fucking movie. So yeah, it makes my perfect list. But anyway, enough about me. What did you think about 1960s Psycho for the second time?
I liked it. I liked it just fine. If it was on, I'm watching it. Like I'm invested. I'm good. And the only reason I didn't remember it because I watched it 4 years ago. I've watched so many movies that sometimes my brain shoots out these other ones that are not prevalent in my brain right then. Like I have to make room for the other ones that you have crammed
That's
in.
totally cool. Which, I'm kind of jealous of because that means you could take a break, not watch a movie for a while, forget about it.
Yeah.
And then come back and watch it with fresh eyes. That is, fuck, I wish I could do that. I wish I had that ability. I don't. I'm sitting here watching Psycho and then like, oh yeah, you know, in this movie, they used that as an inspiration for the.
Oh, it's so funny though, because us watching this I'm going to interrupt you now. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Us watching it for the first, or me watching it for the first time and you watching me watch it, I was so annoyed because I'm like, you're giving it away. Because you're anticipating what's happening next, and I know that something's going to happen next.
I assumed because you saw it once already. Now, when you did see it for the first time.
I'm talking about the first time.
Oh, because, and it took you looking at me dead in the eye. And I think this was after the what the fuck about Marion Crane dying. It took you looking at me and telling me to stop looking at you. Yes. You were like, you have to stop.
Because I knew that something was going to happen.
Giving it away. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to learn to kind of calm that down a little bit, you know, but it was just so fascinating to watch somebody watch it for the first time. Like, I just wanted to be over in the corner being like, you don't know Norman's the killer, do you? This is fucking crazy. You don't know anything about this. This is awesome. Marion Crane, you think she's going to live the whole time through? Huh?
Well, she ain't.
Yeah. And Sam Loomis, you know, in this movie. Obviously, you know, John Carpenter took the name.
Yeah.
Added it to one of his most famous characters, Dr. Loomis, in Halloween.
When I was watching this for the second time, I was like, just the other day, whatever, for this, I was like, oh man, we always said that our youngest is named Sam after Supernatural because we went through this big Supernatural phase. And then I was like, it would be even cooler if you said that you named him after Sam.
Sam Loomis.
Psycho.
That'd be cool as fuck. We could have named him Sam Loomis Evans. We didn't know that show was going to crash and burn and be shitty after a few seasons.
We were just obsessed with it.
That's not our fault. We didn't know it was going to get really bad.
But we could change our story.
We could. We could. Anyway, but I'm glad you had a good time with this the second time around. Maybe in the future we'll visit the sequels and see what you think about those. Because like I said, man, while it is totally unnecessary that this movie had sequels, they do, and they're actually a good time. Like, I'm shocked of how good of a time I had. And plus in the third one, you get sexy ass Jeff Fahey walking around with some tight pants. Oh. You're good to go. And Anthony Perkins is in all three of those sequels. That's not awesome. So much the fourth one. He's regaling you with his past in the fourth one. So it's more of a prequel. The fourth one's kind of weak. It's not as good, but it is directed by Mick Garris. So if you're a fan of Mick Garris like I am, it's a good time.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it gets a fair shake because it was more of a TV movie. But anyway, it also spawned a television series starring Vera Farmiga that came on, I believe Bravo showed that, and it was a direct prequel to this, like a prequel to the Psycho. And you know, It came in that early boom of let's make every horror movie into a TV show. You know, they started doing that a long time ago. They did that with Exorcist and stuff like that. And I don't know. I watched Bates Motel and it wasn't for me. I didn't like it at all. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of fans of that show. A lot of fans love that show, but to me it's just I don't know. I don't know. I didn't need it. I didn't need a backstory. I get all the backstory I need about this character here. You know, I feel like if you flesh Norman Bates too much out, he becomes less of what he was.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where I think his introductory into this is perfect. Like I said, he feels lived in. He feels like he's a real person. And when you start fleshing him out way too much, it gets a little silly. I think that's why that fourth one's a little weak.
Okay.
We're doing too much character analysis on Norman, you know. But anyway, that is Psycho from 1960. I love doing these classic movies, you know. These classic movies are fun. You want to do another classic movie?
Sure.
That's right. So next week we're doing Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That's right. We're going to be talking about the feud between Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, the feud those two women had. And that's the cat taking a shit in the litter box.
Sorry about that.
Ruined it. You ruined my little speech, cat. God, he's really burying in that dirt. But yeah, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane next week. I hope you guys join us for that. Still just shoveling. Okay, now he's done. He was hurrying. Anyway. He's like, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, you guys. That's enough interruptions. But yeah, join us next week for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. But thanks for listening. Hey, those of you who subscribe on Patreon, thank you for subscribing over there.
Yes, thank you.
You've been a wonderful help. It really helps. It's all going towards Trip now, the movie I'm making. Also, be on the lookout. Eventually, I think it was supposed to be at the end of August that we launched the Indiegogo. Okay. But movie making takes time, and Leaf didn't know that. so
you just thought it was just gonna happen.
I am too laser focused on shit sometimes. So it's taking a little longer. So I'm thinking by the end of September, Indiegogo's gonna launch. Brittany just looked at me like, whoa, dude. Yeah, I know.
How about you not put dates on things?
Okay, we're not going to put a date on the Indiegogo, but it's going to launch sometime soon. And I hope you guys go. You can, it's up sort of now where you can sign up with your email. So you'll get alerts when it does finally launch. So go do that. You know, go to the Indiegogo now. You can find that on the Twitter and stuff like that. And I'll probably put it in the show notes too. I need to start putting things in the show notes like that. But yeah, go support that. Everything. And if you're not ready to dump a bunch of money into an Indiegogo at some point, join our Patreon, man. We have all sorts of side shows. I dropped 2 commentaries because Brittany's off, and I think I'm going to start dropping more commentaries just by myself.
Right.
Like, because it's something to give you guys a little extra something, and it fills up the time, you know, extra shows for you. So I think I'm going to start doing those because they're easier. And then also every bit of money that the Patreon makes is now going towards the movie. So you're helping with the movie by vicariously doing that, and also you get some stuff for your money over there. You know? Yeah. But anyway, thanks for listening. I'm Lee Evans saying stay spooky,
and I'm Brittany. Stay horrific.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. To get a hold of us and submit your stories, fan mail, and death threats, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and nightofthehorrorfile.com. Our theme song was written and performed by John Brennan, used with permission. Find John at shopjb.bandcamp.com and at badtechno.com. If you like what you hear, leave a good review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show on your social media. See you next week.